right, this is teaching models. Okay, today we're going to be comparing traditional learning versus online learning. So let's go ahead and define our terms. Traditional learning is going to typically occur face-to-face. Students are seeing professors and their peers 2 to 3 times a week and interacting in person. They're typically going to occur in formal settings. This may be a classroom, auditorium, or conference room, wherever the teacher happens to be set up. Versus e-learning, they're going to be using technology versus direct contact, so through email, Skype, phone call, etc. And knowledge is going to be shared between the peers and the instructor versus in traditional learning. Knowledge is typically coming from instructor to students. It's a one-way train versus in e-learning, it tends to be an all-over train tracks, to keep going with that analogy. The differences and similarities. So comparing e-learning and traditional learning, we do find some similarities. Both models require students to complete and submit work. This may seem like a no-brainer, but I have met professors at in-person universities who did not believe that e-learning taught students to do work. To them, I say, boo. Both models, e-learning and traditional learning, are going to require students to attain new knowledge and skills in their chosen fields. It doesn't matter whether it needs to be hands-on or hands-off. Both models require students to attain these new things. They require them to be used. Okay, differences. First very obvious difference is location. Traditional learning is typically going to be done in a classroom setting and a more formal setting, whereas e-learning can be really done from anywhere with a good internet access. Types of interactions. When we are talking face-to-face, obviously we are using our verbal cues, nonverbal cues, right? Our words and our body language, versus in e-learning we will be using technology such as emails, phone calls, Skype, etc., right? Where our communication has to be done through mainly the written word. Time management is another big one. Traditional learning requires students to be in class for certain time periods, whereas e-learning allows students to do it when they have time within their day, whether that's typing a paper or listening to a lecture after the kids go to bed or on your lunch break. E-learning allows for that. Some advantages of traditional learning. There are advantages to it. Number one is it lends itself to a greater opportunity for hands-on experience for students, such as biology labs, dissections, chemistry labs, etc. Many different opportunities here. It also provides additional structure for students with a set time to learn and a set time to go home. There are disadvantages to traditional learning, though. Some of them may be accessibility. Being able to leave your job for several hours a day to go do school is not a perk offered to many employees. Distance may also be a factor if you live rurally. This does make accessibility a disadvantage in traditional learning styles. Class limitations. There are only so many seats in a classroom, or there may be so many classes offered at a university at a time. Time is also a huge disadvantage of traditional learning. It can carve out hours of a student's day that they may need to be working or taking care of their family. The transformative learning theory works especially well with traditional learning, as it focuses on allowing the students to have a transformative experience with other people, hearing other experiences. Modes of teaching for traditional learning can be normal lectures, as I said, a direct line from instructor to student, or Socratic discussions work well here as well, especially if you are going for a transformative learning experience. Advantages and disadvantages of e-learning can include flexibility, allowing students to do homework when they need to, as they need to. Accessibility is a huge advantage. Instead of having to carve time out of their day to go to classes on their computer, this does make it more accessible. Unfortunately, at the same time, accessibility can be a disadvantage. There are still areas of America where people do not have access to the internet. Very rural towns may have very limited, um, excuse me, internet accessibility. And this can make e-learning a difficulty. Accountability may be another one. There is nobody checking that you've done the week's reading, or that you are actually doing what you're supposed to be doing, at least until the semester grades come out, which is a bummer. The lack of professional relationships can also be a big disadvantage of e-learning. Instead of building relationships face-to-face with professors, and learning from them, and building that professional relationship to be used on applications, that is much more difficult to build in an e-learning environment. The self-directed learning model works especially well within the e-learning environment, as self-directed learning places the emphasis on the student to attain their knowledge. Being able to be self-motivated is a requirement to be able to complete an online course. If you are not self-motivated, it will not happen. Instruction can be given through independent readings, research projects, or through lecture videos. Here are my sources. I did forget to mention within the e-learning is that one of my sources from Radovic Markovic, right there, the fourth one down, she did mention a few studies that had said one of the advantages of e-learning was that it enabled women to be more likely to get an education. Thank you so much. Have a great night.